Welcome back. Let's talk a little bit more about the looming power crisis. You've been hearing clarion calls by plants across the country, more than 100 of them, saying they have enough coal for less than 48 hours. In the morning, we had the former Coal India chairman, Mr. Bhattacharya, basically explaining to our viewers that even if you're just left with a day or two of coal stock, it's still a lot. No need to start pressing the panic button. Nevertheless, you are seeing states do that. From a Delhi to a Maharashtra to a Tamil Nadu to a Punjab to a Jharkhand. SOS's calls by the chief ministers. You have also started seeing load shedding already. This week is a big week. The festivities season is upon us. Dussehra is on Friday. Will we see a blacker Diwali than we deserve to? We're going to be discussing this and more with Anil Razdan, former Power Secretary. Mr. Razdan, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us here. If I could get your opening comments, the calls that you're seeing from the power plants about how they have stock for only 24 to 48 hours, how supply is now being stopped to industry, being diverted for electricity generation, captive plants are being encouraged to also sell coal in the open market. Is the worst behind us, or do you think things are going to get even worse after what you've seen in Europe and China?
I think the situation is certainly calls for collective action on all fronts. And I think we have been caught napping somewhere because, you see, the tendency in statistically speaking is always to compare with the previous year, but the previous year was a COVID year. And we have suddenly jumped into activity. But it has come at a time when the monsoons were delayed and they have flooded certain areas. And also, we are approaching the festive season, as you rightly said. We're virtually in it. So commercial activity, commercial consumption, everywhere the demand goes up. Industrial activity is also picked up, luckily. So all these three factors combined with a surge in international prices of the commodity has not allowed imports to come in because people thought that it would not be affordable to be buying coal at that price. And a lot of coal, I'm told, is also stuck at Chinese ports. It's unfortunately a combination of factors. I was reading somewhere today figures of letters exchanged in March, April. That's a long time back this year. But I think the writing is on the wall. We have to improve our delivery of coal. We have to, most importantly, pay up the distribution company, the Discom dues to the generators, so that they have the money and the cash chest to buy and stack coal. It's good to say that you stack for 20 days or 22 days, but all that comes at a price. You've got to pay for it. And unless the consumers are not going to pay you in time, and the distribution companies in turn are not going to pay the generators in time, how do the generators pay Coal India? Or for that matter, some of the private fellows coming in. Or even if you want to import coal, where the prices have shot up substantially in multiples, maybe 3 to 4 times. On the other side, you see, things are not easy because we have been brought up in a generation where, at least my generation, where you had to use diesel power as a backup, which is very unfortunate and dirty also in a way. But diesel prices have also shot up, and diesel is again a requirement for all equipment at the coal mining end, and also for transportation to the local industries, etc., because every industry does not have a railhead. So overall, it is a price crunch, and I do see it getting passed on to consumers. But the fact remains that this highlights the need for energy efficiency in our use of gadgetry, in our use of machinery, and also avoiding any wasteful consumption of energy at this critical time. The consumer has to cooperate, and deal with the situation where diesel, petrol, coal prices are at an all-time high. Demand is picking up. Luckily, employment avenues are reopening again. We all have to cooperate. At the same time, we'd been hearing noises of a very significant COP meeting coming up in Glasgow soon. And they were votaries of net zero. Voices had come from Europe, from China, but China itself has run into a problem. Net zero is good, is a very desirable concept, but you have to work to reach it. You've got to have the technologies in place. You have to have, again, affordable technologies, which
Of
the
course, Mr.
developing
Razdan,
world.
and to be fair, we're also now seeing Indian companies maybe starting to make that noise. For example, hydrogen, silicon, what Reliance is trying to pioneer. You've heard from Gautam Adani himself in the last couple of days committing billions of dollars as far as this high entry barrier of electricity generation, gas and production and all of that goes. But Mr. Razdan, just coming back to the moot point, and you said that, we should not get so alarmed because it takes a lot of time to go through that stock of 14 days. There is a double whammy with international coal prices going up. My question to you is that with captive mines now being allowed to sell 50% of their coal in the open market, will that be good enough to tide us through the next couple of days? Because the crisis seems to be short term.
Not really short term, if I have to believe some analysts who are saying that it could last through the winter, because that is not a short term. I would say it's not a week or 10 days. Statistics, you see, are always beautiful. If you have a stock of, say, or an average of 4 days generation or 5 days generation overall in the inventory, it's extremely relevant how close that stock is to the generating machine and how soon you can transport that stock to the required machines. So that kind of analysis, I think, had emerged about a week or 10 days back, that how many stations have how many days stock. That is what is more relevant. That 1 day stock, 2 days stock, some places, other places, little more comfortable. So the average comes to 4. Well, that is good as an overall exercise. But coming down to the criticality of each individual plant, that I think is a very relevant exercise, and it's not good to run away from facts. And I hope that, and I'm sure that kind of analysis is available, and we ought to cooperate. The consumer has to cooperate. The consumer, as I said, has to pay up the generating company so that they can buy more coal. They can buy, in turn, the distribution companies have to have money to buy spot electricity, where again prices have shot up like in any market mechanism. So here I think the regulators, the electricity regulatory mechanism, which we had put in place, they have to swing into an action mode and not merely delivering judgments and making legal pronouncements. Because the rights of the consumer, the rights of the distributor, the rights of the generator, all these have to be protected in an even-handed manner. And I think along with all this, as I'm saying, energy efficiency is most important. And particularly when you're going to go in for renewable sources, which are smaller packets of power, energy efficiency comes in a bigger way, and better planning and better management. But I only hope that those who are shouting for net zero, yes, it's a good target, as I said, but we've got to know where we stand,
right,
and what noises should we make, and in fact ask for technology to move towards net zero if the developed countries
right.
mean business. And also the power minister has been making a very good statement that we should look at per capita emissions. I've been saying that for nearly 2 decades. If you want equity.
Fair enough. Mr. Razdan, based on your experience, Mr. Razdan, based on your experience though, and you pointed out that you've been saying this for 2 decades, would you then say, and I'm trying to gauge this, you have data and you said that you can't compare with last year since last year was a COVID year, but over the last 7 years, there are 2 instances where we've fallen short or we've come to very low levels of coal. And those 2 instances, one in 2014 particularly stands out, have been resolved in maybe a few months' time. Are you then saying that this year is different from those years as well, in that it's a slightly longer term problem?
You see, as I said, the starting base was unfortunately a base of inactivity. So when we are looking at a startup, you need a double acceleration. And that double acceleration can, you see, only come, number one, with money being available. Everything moves on money. Those dues have to be cleared. I think I was reading today that 1,17,000 are the overdues from Discoms to the Gencos, a 3% increase, or 3.3% increase to be precise. Now that is not a good sign. Money must come back into the system. Then, as I said, you started on a lower base. So your acceleration is higher suddenly. And you've fallen in a year, unfortunately, where the rains were extended. So coal mining areas were flooded. And then into a festive season, where consumption in any case is higher. But I think at the bottom of it, we've got to have the basics clear. Yes, a country like ours needs energy efficiency. It needs a diverse portfolio, and it needs very active liquidation of outstandings and dues, because no business can run on promises. Business
Right.
must.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Mr. Razdan. Absolutely, Mr. Razdan. You've said it, and clearly a situation that bears monitoring. Thank you so much for joining in and putting that into perspective for us. And as always, pleasure speaking with you.